So now please join me in welcoming Mayor Eduardo Paes.
The first thing I want to say is, I remember when I met Mark in 2009. I mean, it was just in my first year in office. By the time, I don't know, it was 2009, 2010, I don't remember that. But, you know, as you can see, Mark is always very excited about everything, very optimistic about everything. And he said that he wanted to get a Studio X in Rio. And I said, please come. I mean, we'll do anything it's possible for you to stay in our city. And the thing is, by the time I knew that Rio would be facing great challenges, and that we need to think out of the box. I mean, obviously, when you have a city that is transforming as much as Rio is transforming itself, usually you are connected to people that are here, that are thinking about the problems of here, the people that are living the everyday life of the city. I know that the position of Colombia and Studio X would not be a colonial position. I mean, that you would come to try to live the environment of Rio and try to help us getting the solutions. And that was the main reason we took Studio X to Tiradentes Square. I mean, this is a very important place of the city. And in this big area, which is downtown Rio, this was a microcosm, a very small place, but a very important one. I mean, you have great theaters, you got Carlos Gomes. I mean, the square was surrounded by fences. And so we knew that bringing Studio X to this place, right in downtown Rio, in a very degraded area, would mean a lot to the city. So I would use Studio X and the presence of Studio X as one of these small things that you can do in cities, in degraded areas in cities, and that you really can get things changed because of these inspirations. Why do we want to speak about the port? I mean, when we talk about the future of cities, why would I give the port area of Rio as an example of the challenges we face? I mean, because what I really think is that the port area has a lot to do with the challenges that Rio faces and the problems that Rio faced in its history. I'm saying here, this is where it all started. It's not that the city was founded here, was invented here, but I would say that the image of Rio, as we have the image today, the image of Rio to the world, had started with in the port area. And the port area kind of consolidates all the problems that we've been facing. I mean, the main problem that Rio has been facing along its history, if you look at the history of the city, you're going to see that all the time. I mean, it's a city that it's been escaping from itself, from its problems. I mean, we start in the port or this downtown Rio center, then we go to the neighborhood of Botafogo, then it gets bad. Then we invent Copacabana, then it gets bad, then you go to Ipanema, then it gets bad, then you go to Leblon, and then it gets terrible, then you find a new place in Barra, where you build condominiums, where you think you can isolate people. What happens when we do that, when we escape from our problems, is that the city becomes degraded. I mean, we're talking about an area of 5 million square meters, right in the middle of downtown Rio. I mean, close to everything, looking like that, completely abandoned. And what you get is that. I mean, people moving to the west, moving away from downtown Rio. So the first thing about having the renovation of the port area, and one of the biggest challenges that I think cities faces. And obviously, I mean, everywhere you go, there's going to be different particularities. But these are problems that most of the cities, they face all the time, is that they abandon their areas to look for new areas, and the city gets bigger. If you look at the the area of the city with less density, which is not good. Let me show a figure here. This is amazing. I mean, if you look at the urban density of Rio in 19th century, the end of 19th century, we had 9,800 inhabitants per square kilometer. Then in the 60s, it went to 16,000 inhabitants per square kilometer. And this figure is amazing. This is our figure today. I mean, we have only 6,500 inhabitants per square kilometer. So we grew the size of the city. We left good areas of the city because we said, okay, there's no solution for that. There's no salvation for that. So we're going to escape from ourselves and find new places so that we can build another city. And I don't have to remember you, but every time we grow the area of a city, every time we escape from the problems of a city, what it means is that you have to invest more in mobility, you have more traffic problems, you spend more money delivering public services. The other thing about the Porto Maravilha project that I think it's kind of a consolidation of the problems of big cities and of the solutions, that first thing, we are coming back to the center of Rio. We're coming back to the place where the city has started. And the other thing is we moved from from a city that for a long time has given privilege to cars. And by next Saturday, I don't know if people that are watching us all over the world, they know, but we are finally closing down a terrible viaduct. I don't know if I have the picture of this viaduct here. That's here. A viaduct that it has completely degraded this area. And it shows the city that has privileged cars. And that is always going to be a problem for a city. I mean, this is a main discussion happening in Rio these days. I mean, the other thing about the port area, which is also important, is that we are coming back, besides coming back to the old Rio, besides meeting our history, what we're trying to do here is, give a city, give to the people a city where cars are not the big bosses. I mean, where cars are not the ones that will dictate what will happen to the cities. There's going to be priority to pedestrians, to public transportation. There's going to be a light railway system. There is another issue, I mean, that is more connected to what I said first. I mean, we're meeting back our history. I mean, there's a great thing about the African heritage in the port area of Rio. Every time we're doing it, and that's what Mark said. I mean, this place here is called Paes do Valongo. It's a port where the African slaves would arrive in Rio. And in the beginning of the project, that was supposed to be a road. I mean, it was supposed to be a street right over there. And we started digging, and then we found that. And it was amazing, Mark, because the day I got there, I was making a visit on a certain weekend, and there was the day that they first found the Paes do Valongo. And the first thing we said, okay, let's not build any street here, and let's keep this place. So it has also a lot to do with not only going back to the center of Rio, but getting back to our history. So amazing history findings there. It's a place, the port area renovation, it's a place, as Mark said, that we change all the time. But we have some iconic architecture and arts interventions. I mean, this is the first museum that we inaugurated in this area, and it gives life. I mean, in spite of the fact that most of this area is not ready yet, many people living there, many office buildings there, but it's already an area that's bringing people because of the Museum of Art, Colmar. And this is a little video so that we can show how that area is going to be. Say goodbye to Perimetral. So we still save some places for car, some room for car. There's going to be a tunnel there. So I mean, I don't want to keep going with this video. So this gives us an idea of what's happening there, already happening. I mean, lots of these images that we saw here are virtual images, but they are realities of this place. But so again, using the port area as a laboratory for intervention in the city. So we go back to downtown Rio, we discover history. The challenges of mayors are huge challenges. I mean, everyone is living in cities, as Mark said. I mean, by 2050, 70% of the population of the world is going to be living in cities. And that cannot be seen as a problem. I mean, I would say that this is it's a solution for the future of civilization. But how do we pay for that? I mean, how can we get all this infrastructure, all this tearing down a viaduct, building new ways, new sidewalks, light rail system? And the port area, again, it's a project that I think it gets kind of an example of what we should be doing to big cities. Is that all of that, and people don't believe me, Mark. I mean, I have to go on TV, I have to get down on my knees so people that can believe. I'm not spending any public money on that. I mean, this is a private-public partnership. I mean, all of that is being paid by private money. I mean, what you get is you get a completely degraded area of the city, and what you do is you tell the private sector, okay, I'm gonna sell you the right to build, and the money that I can get from this right to build, I'm going to spend all in the infrastructure of this certain region of the city. So, I mean, this is also a solution. It means also the port project means a solution for big cities. I mean, to the challenges and to the lack of money. I mean, if you look at Istanbul, if you look at Mumbai, if you look at Beijing, I mean, maybe Beijing, they're kind of richer than we are, but if you look at most of the cities, what is the problem of mayors? I mean, lack of money to invest in its infrastructure. Another interesting point about the port area, and that's also something that happens in most of the cities. I mean, the favelas, the slums, which are always, and the history of Rio shows that favelas are always seen as a problem. And I think that the favelas, and having a favela right in the first favela of Rio, right in the middle of the port area, can show us that they can, most of the time, with certain interventions that obviously need to be done, they can be a solution. I mean, I don't want to go against the schools of architecture, but if you look at what most of the schools of architecture, what Columbia Architecture School is saying these days, I mean, if you look, most basic of the principles, they were already decided in the favelas. I mean, they were already in the favelas. I mean, they're close to the place where people work. They have high density. I mean, it's a place where people, the houses are small. So you don't privilege the private space, you privilege the public space. I mean, people will go out, will meet a lot. So we also see that and we have a lot of problems, I mean, discussing and having discussion, what should we do in Morro da Providência, in the port area. But it's also an opportunity or a laboratory to see how can we deal with a thing with something that's always been seen as a problem to big cities. And I don't see that as a problem. I mean, I think with the right interventions, obviously we have to intervene to open spaces, to build new public spaces, to bring good services to the favelas. But in a certain aspect, the favelas, the urbanism that is defended today by most of the schools of architecture, they were already in the favelas, in the first favelas. So there's another great thing about the port area. I mean, this is what some of the urbanists would defend in the past. I mean, put people away in low density areas, spread them around, and I think the favelas, they were working before that. So, and bring the basic service to them. So again, the port area of Rio, Mark, I think it gets together all of the elements and very real elements when we talk about the future of cities. That's why we put so much effort in this project. That's why we see that as a changing project. I mean, there's not something that's going to end in 2016. I mean, mainly most of the infrastructure, the tunnels, the sidewalks, the light railway, it will end by 2016. But I think it's an opportunity of a laboratory for challenges of cities. And going to the point, and I want to finish here now, but going to the point of what Mark said, I mean, we are much more important than presidents. And I'm not saying that because I'm a mayor. I mean, I know that I'm more important than Dilma, that Bloomberg is more important than Obama. But I mean, I'm not against the nation states. I mean, I think they have their role. But if you look at what these guys are discussing every day, I mean, they have nothing to do with the real life of people. I mean, mayors are the ones that are connected to the real life of people. So, I mean, I think I cannot miss this opportunity, and I think Colombia saw that long ago, but I cannot miss this opportunity to have this word here. I think that the solution of the world, the solution for the better living of people, they are completely connected to the power of cities, to local power, to local government, and to networks like C40, that is the president today is Mayor Bloomberg. I'm going to be president of C40 next year, but and I'm not going to go against UN. I'm not going to go against G20. I'm not going to go against Obama. Otherwise, he's going to tap me. Can you imagine? I mean, instead of Angela Merkel, Obama tapping the mayor of Rio. I mean, what trouble it would be with my wife and my wife's mother and all the problems that we have. But anyway, so I think mayors and cities, they have to build global networks so that we can, and Colombia is helping a lot in that, in finding solutions to the problems that we face together. And the last thing, last message I want to leave here is something that I said the other day in a speech that I had in a Google meeting in Phoenix, Arizona. This is a new way of democracy, something like that. But again, if you look at Brazil, I mean, again, giving the example of Rio, I mean, we're not facing an economic crisis. We're not facing high unemployment rates, and people are out in the streets protesting. I don't see that as a bad thing. Again, everybody says the same. I mean, when there are peaceful protests, we're for it. When they get violent, everybody's against it. But let's talk about the good protests, the peaceful protests. And the thing is, and I think in this matter, also cities can be the solution. The thing is, we have a problem with representative democracy. I mean, if you look back in the history of democracy and the model we live today, it's pretty much the same. I mean, going back to history, we had the Greek polis, direct democracy. It was impossible at a certain point to keep with direct democracy. I mean, getting people together in the square to decide things. Then we had the Roman Assembly. Then the Roman Senate. Then we had in the 14th century the English Parliament. But if you look from that point of history till these days, I mean that has changed very little. So we have a big crisis on representative democracy, and I think there are two elements or two phenomena, whatever you want to call it, that are very intense, and they're relatively new and recent, which are the power of cities, I mean the polis, and the digital revolution. I mean, if you get this together, and again, I'm not saying to all the decisions, I'm not saying that this is going to be in place of representative democracy, but if we see cities as a place where really things can happen, where really things happen, and where the decisions are made, I think there's a way that we can develop, and that's what we're trying to do here in Rio, in spite of all the people complaining that we don't listen to everyone, but get this, what I've been calling Polish digitocracy. I mean, the city and the digitocracy as a new way, and the digital world as a new way to make us govern. So I think that, concluding, I think that we have great challenges ahead of us. I really, as you said, I'm an optimist guy. You know, I don't get depressed ever. Even with all the protests, I think that I got the best job in the world. You know, running a city, running a gathering of people as the Cariocas, running a city that has so many challenges as Rio. And again, when you talk about the challenge of Rio, I look at that as great opportunities. And I think this city is going to change, and it's going to be a great model and example for the rest of the world. Thank you very much.